Hello. We are in Genesis chapter 19. Now, last time we were talking about Abraham interceding for Sodom. So we are in chapter 19, verse 1. The two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth. So again, you see, last time we were talking about how Lord said that he was coming down to Sodom, but then he separated from the other two men, the two angels, but he still said that he was going to come down and see it for himself. So you can see that those two men also were, in a sense, God. They were a representation of him, which is very interesting. The other thing is, so you have these representatives of the Lord, or the Lord himself, and so they have two functions, if you will, here. So they came down to judge Sodom, but they also brought escape, salvation, if you will, to those who were deemed to be worthy. Verse 2, and said, My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house and spend the night and wash your feet. Then you may rise up early and go on your way. They said, No, we will spend the night in the town square. But he pressed them strongly, so they turned aside to him and entered his house. And he made them a feast and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. So I think the reason the angels said this, because they knew what was going to happen, and they wanted to save Lot from this unpleasantness. But, again, right, so he didn't recognize God, because in verse 2 he said, my lords, and the word there used is like my sirs, if you will, not actually L-O-R-D, capital letters like Elohim or God or Yahweh. The other thing is, so, right, he didn't know that they were God, or representatives of God, who they were, let's put it this way. They didn't know, Lot didn't know who they were. So in hindsight, we knew who they were. For us, it's easy to say that I would have done this or that, but I already explained that it shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't think like that. But you can see that if you do not do what God tells you to do, even if he might save you from a precarious situation that you put yourself in because you didn't listen to him, you might still have to experience the unpleasantness because you didn't listen to him. But it might be the case that he lets you to go into the situation and learn that you need to listen to him and you need to be righteous, if you will. Verse 4, but before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the lost men surrounded the house, and they called to Lot, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have two daughters who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof. Okay, that is a strange section, disturbing, if you will, from a certain perspective. Okay, I've read countless times that people are using this verse saying that, the problem of Sodom and Gomorrah was homosexuality, but I don't think that's the case, and I've read others saying that's not necessarily the case. Yes, fair enough, that might have been an aspect of it, but if you remember, even before this act, before they wanted to perform this act, even before they tried to drag those people out and they came knocking on the door, God already knew that there was great iniquity in the town or in the city. He knew what was going on. So I don't think Sodom could be defined by that one proposed act. Now, given, yes, I'm not denying that probably was going on there, but I think they wanted to force them to perform the act. So this would have been more of a rape, not more of a, not a, such as a consensual act. And I remember reading somewhere that you have to distinguish between the two. And I heard people saying that, oh yeah, you see, that is a perfectly normal thing, because even in the animal kingdom, this sort of thing is done. But I read that even in the animal kingdom, it is to exert dominance over someone or over another anymore. And I think this was the case here as well, that they wanted to dominate those, they wanted to hurt them, because we're going to see how they react to Lot's proposition. But the other thing is him offering his daughters, his virgin daughters, for the men to do as they wish is just disturbing. But what's ironic about it is what Lot suggested that they do with his daughter is exactly what his daughters are going to do with him when he gets drunk later on. And I don't think there's a satisfying way to explain why he did what he did. I don't think that there's a way to explain it which make him look righteous. But I read 2 books on looking at the Bible from a Middle Eastern perspective, biblical stories, and one of them was the Eastern hospitality. And the author said that the Eastern hospitality is such an important, highly revered part of the fabric of society that people have gone bankrupt just so they could show hospitality towards someone in forms of a wedding, for example, or even just to be hospitable. People would rather not eat and rather sacrifice their own well-being just so they can show hospitality towards someone else. So that could have been a contributing factor. I'm not sure, but it's difficult to deal with. I don't think you could say that, yeah, Lot was a righteous man in this situation. But again, we have to understand something about God. And I learned this today in the book of Daniel, and I don't remember what was the name of it looked like God was lenient towards someone who had greater sin than the other person. But there is the case of teachability. There is a case of, yes, God might save someone who doesn't look righteous, but at the same time, if that person is teachable, then God might be a lot more lenient with him, or give him a pass regarding something that could be considered a greater sin than someone else had done. So you have to factor that into the equation as well. Verse 9, but they said, stand back. And they said, this fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. Then they pressed hard against the man Lot and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out their hands and brought Lot into the house with them and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so that they wore themselves out groping for the door. So as you can see, as I've said, they understood that what they were doing is a horrible thing, because they said that we are going to deal with you even in a more horrific way, and deal worse with Lot than with the sojourners or the guests. And you can see that was the mentality. So it wasn't just that one act was defining what was wrong with Sodom and Gomorrah. It was the aggregate of a lot of things. But again, even if there is a place where things are just going bad and things are horrible, God will still save you if you are righteous. So no matter where you are, or what situation you're in, if God sees you as righteous, you will receive, what's the word I'm looking for? You will receive, you will be saved. He will save you. He will deliver you. And this is the most important thing. Amen.